Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Happiness Matters, the show with me, Beanie Man, and Mo the service dog, who is not in my office because if people walk by outside, he barks, and yeah, he's quite loud because he's a big dog. So as you see, this is a little different format. I now start doing Zoom interviews with my friends because not everybody's here in Colorado Springs or in Colorado and willing to travel here. So today I have a new friend that I was introduced to through Facebook, through a mutual friend, Angel Tussey, who I did an interview with a couple weeks ago. And his name is Richard Brown, and he hails from Florida, which, you know, sometimes I wish I'd be there, like beach and everything. But anyway, so thank you so much, Richard, for being on the show, for agreeing this. And, you know, we had a few hiccups getting this all working. But hey, life is awesome. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your service. I see you have a Marine uniform hanging there behind you. I really appreciate it. And take it away. I mean, tell us a little bit about you and what raises you happy and what do you do to spread happy or anything along those lines, inspire people, you know, take it away.
Well, thank you, Beanie. I appreciate it. It was an honor to serve. Those are my dress blues. And once you are able to put on the dress blues of a Marine, it's not something you want to put away in a box. And so I put that up above my desk just to remind me when things get a little bit challenging. This ain't nothing.
I know, right?
This before, you know. So, but I appreciate that. And to correct you on one thing, I live in Florida now. When you said I hailed from Florida, I thought, First time, I've only been here for 2 years, but I spent 30 years in the Rocky Mountains between Denver and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and that's all part of my little story here. Mm-hmm. But I'll take Florida for right now. It's pretty great weather down here.
Hey, right now, that's where you're hailing from. We'll take it.
Right. And it's going to be great in February. So
yeah, I might come visit you then.
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
People are moving here like crazy. But I appreciate the opportunity this morning. When we first talked, it was about dealing with challenges, and that's what I do. I'm a leadership coach, and I help leaders ramp their game up. My new deal is that I help leaders become heroes. I was always fascinated with heroism when I was young. My father was in the Navy for 24 years. My brother is in the Army. My daughter was in the Navy herself, and so we've had a pretty long military history.
Nice, thank you.
So I've always been fascinated with heroes, and that I probably won't get off on that tangent, but we can go there if you'd like to. But one of the things that I'd like to share is a perspective that I recently had kind of corrected for me. Particularly, I was at a meeting, and long story short, we had an opportunity after a long day of work to share our life experiences in the past 3 to 5 years that had involved some type of trauma, a bad moment. And the rules were we went around the circle, everybody shared their experiences, and everybody else had to sit there and be quiet and couldn't offer any suggestions, couldn't solve any problems. So the women they were fine. They were able to listen, but men being from Mars, we had to gag ourselves so we wouldn't offer solutions to the problems. But I was one of the last ones to go. And again, the ground rules were, tell us about a life-changing traumatic experience that happened in the past 3 to 5 years. Well, I'm somewhat older than 40, significantly older than 40.
Okay, 40 plus 1.
40, exactly. I think I'm 37 on the inside, but.
So 37 plus tax.
37 plus tax. I'm going to go with that.
There you go. You're welcome.
But, as I looked at it, I said to the folks, if you'd have asked me this question 3 to 5 years ago, I'd have felt like I didn't have anything to share. And as I listened to the stories that went around the room, I mean, they brought tears to people's eyes.
Wow.
We're talking deaths, illnesses, abusive situations. I mean, just some of the worst things. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've been incredibly blessed. And I have been incredibly blessed in my life. Unfortunately, I lost my father before I was 2.
Oh,
my
wow.
mother raised me. Man, that happens, heart disease.
Yeah.
My single mother raised me, and she worked her tail off. And I don't know, we've been very blessed. And I look back on it now, we didn't have a lot, but I didn't think I was poor. I grew up in an 8-foot wide, 54-foot long trailer, but loved the trailer park. We had a pool. I had friends. We could go out in the tumbleweeds and back to the trailer park in Santa Maria, California, and hunt down horny toads. It was a fun time. I grew up, got through high school, no big deal. Got a scholarship for Navy ROTC, went to college. Went through some ups and downs in college, like we all do. Long story short, had gotten to a point in my life where I look back on it and I thought, how did I get so lucky? I have 3 wonderful kids. They've all been healthy. Worst situation we had with those guys is my son broke his leg ski racing. Okay. So there just wasn't any traumatic experiences that took place in my life. Became a sales manager, I got into this leadership thing. And one of the things I always talk to people about is that, and you've heard it before, and our friends out there have heard it before, is that you can't control your circumstances.
Nope.
All you can control is your reaction to those circumstances.
That's right. Did you hear that, guys? You are in control. I know we talked about it on other shows. You are in control right now over everything in your life.
Yeah. And that's, I want to come back, remind me to come back to that from the standpoint of a hero perspective, because I think it's really important. But that was always what I was taught. My mother was a big believer in Norman Vincent Peale and the power of positive thinking, and that's how we were raised. I have a Facebook post. If you look on my Facebook, you can see it. And I'm wearing this goofy Gunga Din hat. We were at a bar, and this Gunga Din hat, and I'm doing this, stiff upper lip British thing with a glass of wine. And the meme I made out of it was something my mom used to tell us. She said, "If you're not happy, get happy." Not, well, can I make
She's a wise woman. I love her.
Oh, she's wonderful. 5 foot nothing. Started a wonderful business in Santa Maria from nothing as a widow, and she's just a great influence in our lives. And I'm sorry she's not here. She's been gone since I was 26, but that was her attitude. If you're not happy, get happy.
I love
Don't expect
that.
somebody else to do it for you. It's very positive. At that point in time, I had nothing to be unhappy about. I had retired from a career with a pharmaceutical company, a 33-year career. I had retired with pension and lump and all this kind of stuff. I was living in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in the house that was as close as I could get for lots of reasons to a cabin in the woods. It wasn't a cabin in the woods, but it looked like a cabin in the woods. I was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I was playing golf. I was retired. Life was just fantastic. The kids were doing their stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't know why I've been so blessed. And then about 3 years ago, what I like to refer to as, well, life happens, okay? And if you'd asked me about it, a life event took place. And so my wife of 24 years decided that she wanted to, quote, reboot her life, end quote.
Oh.
I didn't see it coming. We had things that we were going through and all this kind of stuff, but it happened out of the blue. If you would ask me why to this day, I can say, well, I can tell you where there are a couple of glitches, but everybody has glitches. But why it happened, I still couldn't tell you. But it happened. And
it does sometimes. I mean, life just happens sometimes.
It did happen. And so that was a decision. Well, at the time, I was 37 plus less tax. And what am I going to do now? I've got this leadership business that I'm playing with, that I'm working with, but I'm not going to stay in this little bitty town and be her ex. I mean, I wasn't going to get an apartment and have lawn furniture for living room furniture. It just wasn't going to happen for me.
Good for you.
I went into a pretty dark place for a while. As you can understand.
And we all do sometimes. But the key is, it's like, recognize it and get out.
Well, that's exactly right. And there's a great new movement now talking about mindfulness. And I really believe in mindfulness. And the concept is, if you're starting to feel a little cranky or something, sit back, breathe a little bit, listen, and try and evaluate what's going on.
Right.
And as soon as you can say, I'm jealous of our neighbor and his new boat, if that's the case, as soon as you can identify it, that crankiness reduces, not completely, but maybe by 50%. And so
I would take it a step further. It's like, so instead of being jealous of what they have, what do you need to do to get what they have or something better?
Exactly.
That's my
the next
attitude.
step. And once you can reduce the crankiness, now you can take some action.
Right.
And that's what it came down to. And it didn't happen overnight. But what I decided was I was going to take some time and listen. And I got some advice from my sister. She said, just listen. Just be quiet for a couple of months and figure out where your life's going to be.
She's smart too. She's wise.
She's older than me, and so she got to listen to our mom longer than I did. And so I did. I hooked up a 15-foot tab trailer to my Jeep, and I took off across country. I went to the College World Series, saw Oregon State win the national championship, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
And went to Shanksville, Pennsylvania to see the Flight 93 Memorial. And in the process of this 6-week trip of listening, what was I listening to? Whatever anybody wanted to tell me, particularly the man upstairs. And during that time frame, it was bizarre, Beanie. I will tell people that I would look up at the sky and I would say, don't you have anything better to do? Because you're spending an awfully lot of time with me. But just listening, he picked me up and put me on his back and he carried me. And I don't want to get into that whole discussion, but he carried me for about 2 or 3 months. And long story short, I'm now in Florida, as happy as I've ever been, doing some very meaningful things that I feel with my life that are truly my passion and turning it into a going concern in terms of a business. But my point being is it goes back to the original one. A lot of my friends will say, Rick, you're really doing really well considering. And I look at them and say, what was my choice? I said, I didn't have a choice. And they said, you did have a choice. A lot of people go through what you went through and they just crash.
Right.
Well, I wasn't going to be one of those people. And so it was just a matter of I'm not going to crash. I'm not going to let circumstances define me. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go ahead and do what I have to do.
Right. And and that's the thing too. I mean, we always have a choice. We can learn the lesson and use it as a stepping stone to move forward and up. No question. we can sit there and wallow in self-pity and go into this boo-hoo-hoo, poor me, why is this happening to me, wah. The problem with that is, like attracts like, we get more of the stuff we don't want.
No question about it.
Yeah.
When I told you about that business meeting where I first shared that story.
Right.
And I shared this story, and like I said, everybody around the room, I mean, this was a group of positive, motivated entrepreneurs that are working. They like to say that an entrepreneur is someone who's crazy enough to work 100 hours a week to avoid working 40, which is the truth.
True story.
That's who these people were. They were passionate and excited and everything else. So you would think from that initial exposure that nobody had any disasters. But I'll tell you what, everybody in that room had disasters that were far more significant than mine. But they found themselves within themselves or the universe or friends or whatever it was, the strength to say, enough. Mm-hmm. We're just going to go from here. And that brings me to my concept of heroism. It's something we're working at now with my business. But I've been fascinated with the concept of heroes. And one of the stories is, I believe, first of all, that God doesn't cause things to happen. I believe things happen. We get the gift of free choice. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to go to a T intersection and I choose to turn left and I get hit by a drunk driver, it wasn't because God sent the drunk drivers, because I chose to turn left. If I'd have turned right, I'd have been okay.
Very true.
God's there to help us deal with the circumstances, the consequences of what we choose or what happens to us, but he doesn't control it, or she doesn't, or how you want to look at it. And I look at heroism the same sort of thing. I've studied a lot of Congressional Medal of Honor recipients, Carlos Arredondo, who is the man in the cowboy hat at the Boston Marathon, all these sort of people. And I have firmly come to the belief that heroes they're ordinary people. Every one of them is just an ordinary person like you and I. But they're faced with extraordinary circumstances. All of a sudden, they're in maybe a life-threatening situation.
Yep.
And they can decide what to do. They can run from the flames, or like the only female firefighter that was killed at 9/11, she ran into the building to help people get out. Mm-hmm. That was her choice. And that's what she did.
Yep.
And that's what makes a difference. So heroes, I mean, you can look at the Medal of Honor recipients and at that huge level, but every day we have an opportunity to be our own hero. When we're faced with those situations, we can look at it and say, I'm going to fold up and run away from it, or I'm going to attack it full on.
Right.
And that might be part of the Marine Corps thing that that I've been raised by. But I really believe that. And I think if people can just change that attitude, you can do anything you want with help. Oh, my little dog's coming in to join me.
Oh, good.
Hopefully she'll be quiet. This is a cat that does all the time.
It's okay.
So anyway, that's kind of my story. Again, it's not earth-shaking or anything like that. But for me, I was a very blessed individual faced with some very traumatic situation on my case, and just made the decision that we're going to get over this.
Right. And you know, the thing is, it's like you say it wasn't really traumatic. It was very traumatic for you. You know,
but in comparison to having a son a woman having a son that was larger than her, that abused her on a daily basis,
right.
When the father was gone, and the father never believed that the son was abusing the mom. That's a whole different.
That's a whole different story. But the point is, with whatever trauma we're going through, it's our trauma. You know, and who are we to say that? And I use it with pain because I'm in pain pretty much every day of my life. But it's like, I'm not saying when somebody's telling me they're in a lot of pain, I'm not saying that my pain is more than theirs or theirs is more than mine.
You're right.
It's how we perceive it.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I mean, the mom, that's an awful, awful situation that she's in. But here's the thing, she may look at it and it's like, you know what? Yeah, this really sucked, but I'm okay. You may not perceive it as horrific as maybe you and I. You see what I'm saying?
No, I really do.
And I think a lot has to do with the attitude in ourselves too, and the value we give to whatever trauma we've gone through, because everybody's going through some form of trauma at some time.
Right.
So,
and that brings up this Medal of Honor thing again. If you read citations for Medal of Honor recipients, these were privates, first class. They were lance corporals. They were guys that were just normal, and women. There's a woman Medal of Honor recipient, but they're just normal people going through the day-to-day basis when all of a sudden they're faced with this potentially traumatic situation.
Right.
They chose to act in the way that they chose to act. And everybody has that free will. Everybody has an opportunity to say, I'm going to let this define me, or I'm not going to let this thing define me.
Right. So, and you know, it's easy to say, it's like, oh, this is too tough. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going the other way. It's easy. You know?
Yeah.
And but it's like for me, and I'm sure you're probably the same way. If I see there's something where help is needed, it's not about me. I jump in. It's like, what can I do? Let's do this. Let's figure this out. And I'm not worried about me. I'm not worried about what's happening to this body.
Right.
I'm worried about what can I do for you? You know, and it's like going through stuff that we all go through. It's like, I went through this. It wasn't fun. I was in a really dark place for a while. I mean, it got to the point where I was done with life and I just wanted to check out, you know, but I choose to not give in. I choose to fight. And that goes back to that. We have that choice. Is it tough? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Absolutely it is. It is, because you just never know. Somebody described it one time as the tough times that you go through. If you think about a potter that is making a vase on a wheel, potter's wheel, it's when, in order to make that vase shaped, there has to be pressure applied.
Yes.
There has to be pressure applied at certain times. And if you can take a look at, okay, well, this is we're forming the vase here. This is the pressure, and this is what's going to make me what I am. It's a little bit easier to look at. It helps if you have good friends that can remind you that, and that's an important time.
And let me tell you,
that was an important time for me during my period. Is I had some wonderful friends that were there all the time, and they said, you know, you got this, and it was encouragement I got from them that made me say, you know, I can do this. And that's a huge thing.
It's huge. It's huge. And going back to the pottery thing, so when I was I was fortunate to be removed from my home, from the abusive home I was in. I got to go to a co-ed boarding school in Germany. That was fun.
Oh, well, no.
But part of that is we had a pottery studio there, and I fiddled around with the pottery. So going back to having that pile of clay on that pottery wheel, it's not, I mean, they make it look easy. It's awful. It is hard. And it's like, it crashed so many times, but life is just like that. You know, it's like we get under pressure and it looks good for a second. And then something happens and it crumbles. Mostly my thumb got in the way and I just crashed it back down, you know, but I mean, that's just life that happens. And it's like, but then when it finally became that, I think I made a cup. It was like this big and it took me about 3 hours, but that's not the point. You know,
I'm sure it was beautiful.
well, it was amazing because I made it.
Yeah.
And I pushed through that. And the thing is like, it doesn't matter how many times we fall and we stumble. It matters how many times we get up.
Well, it does.
That's really the difference.
In that vein, I have to encourage people, if they're in a situation where they have a good friend that's going through something, you talk about the hard right versus the easy wrong. It's easy just to pull back. I don't know what to say. I was always one of those people. I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this tragedy has happened to this family. They're good friends of ours. What do you say? It's so important to do the hard right, which is to get in there and maybe you don't say anything. You give them what they need, but you're there for them,
Mm-hmm.
to listen to them and you'll learn that way as well. And I think that's a large part of it. The friends that are there when you're going through these episodes are the true friends. And if you're going to have a friend that goes through it, it's just important that you don't pull back. You do the hard thing and you get in there and you're there for whatever they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing too is like, if you have a family member, a friend, somebody that's going through something, you know, just let them know you're here. Be there. Sure. You don't have to say anything. Just hug them, hold them, sit next to them quietly. You know, reassure them that you're not alone. You have help. We are here to help you. We're here to lift you up. And it makes a huge difference because they may not be ready to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They need somebody. They need to know that I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I have somebody to lean on. And that makes a huge difference. I mean, if it were not for my kids and my husband who were sitting next to me, holding me, telling me they loved me and everything, I would not be here today.
I understand that completely. And it's so important to be part of that community, to be part of that herd or that tribe. You know, there's a great movie. It was the Ice Age, where you've got the saber-toothed tiger and you've got Ray Romano playing the mastodon.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
You got, you know, the chipmunk chasing the acorn, and at one point in time, the saber-toothed tiger does something. Somebody does something that is out of character. I think the tiger saves somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I really never expected you to do that. And they said, it's what you do in a herd.
Yes.
And that's gotten to be our family's motto
like
is when the kids get together and something happen like that, I'll say, well, that's what you do in a herd.
And you know, as humans, we are a herd. We are one ginormous herd spanning the whole earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's like,
you see it every day on Facebook with cute animal videos, but how many times do you see a video where there's a duck helping out a cat or it's amazing what these species have, this concept of assistance to people to animals that they're not even related to on the gene.
Mm-hmm. Well, they normally would eat each other.
I'm sorry?
I said they would normally eat each other.
They'd normally eat each other, but here's a situation where hippos are trying to get a duck out of a pond or something. It's just amazing to me. I think we can learn from that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love sharing them. And it's like, hey, if they can do it, why can't we?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't even speak the same language or body language. I mean, take cats and dogs.
Right.
You know, I mean, their communication, body language wise, is really opposite. Yet they can get along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for us humans, I mean, we can learn each other's language. We have hand gestures that are universal all across the world. Hugs. You know, everybody loves hugs, for instance. Mm-hmm. So it's like if animals who can really not communicate on the same level get together and work together, why can't we, people? Get a clue.
Yeah. No question about it. Well, I really like what you're doing. I hope you get coverage where it impacts people, because you know, it's all little pieces here and there that make it happen. And I hope that this in some way will strike a note in somebody at some point in time that says, you know, he got through it. We mentioned Angel Tussey, and she's a wonderful lady, she and Jay, and she's a large part of what I'm doing right now, but I've watched what she's gone through. And she recently has gone through a similar sort of deal where things changed dramatically.
Yep.
And now she is just rocking the world. I mean,
oh my gosh, she is dynamite. So I was introduced to Angel, actually. She was our keynote speaker for the luncheon, for the Southern Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce luncheon.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So she came, and that's when I met her, and I was like, ooh, I like you. I mean, there was just something. And I was like, I really like you. I would love for you to be on my show. Well, actually, what happened was I was thinking I would love for her to be on my new show that I was thinking of doing, but I hadn't started it yet. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just a thought in my head. And then when I launched it and I put out, you know, looking for guests to be on my show, she shared it over to her side, and that's how we got connected.
Oh, okay. Great.
And she messaged me. She said, can I share it in my groups? Yes, please do. And within, 24, 30 hours, I was completely booked through August.
She has that impact on people.
Oh my gosh, she is amazing. And then I did an interview. She actually came down to Colorado Springs from Denver to do an interview for my show with me.
Yeah.
And she is amazing.
She's a quarter of a stick of dynamite. And if you see her, if the listeners see her anywhere, Angel Tussey, Tuccy, check out her Facebook. But she's all over the place now, and she is really having an impact. Her specialty is media exposure and getting your name out there if you're a small business person. But her story is just fascinating as well.
I mean, it is awesome. And that's why I love doing the show, because it's, and I tell people, it's not a pitch your business show. I don't mind, you know, telling people what you do.
Right.
But it's really, how can we help others move forward? You know, with little tips and like what we do.
As part of what I do, one of the necessary evils are networking events. And you know, those some can be great and some can be not, but it's always amazing, this whole networking phenomenon. It's not the best groups that I've found, and I'm part of a wonderful one here in Stuart, Florida. It's all about, what can I do to help you?
Right.
That's what the first question. What do you do? You know, you do that kind of thing. But instead of, here, I'm a real estate agent. If you're looking, you know, it's what can I do to help you? Because that's really where it all happens.
Right. See, I like asking people too. It's like, so what do you love most about what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what's your biggest struggle that I can help you with?
Yeah.
Or connect you with somebody that might be able to help you. Yeah. And the looks I get, because they're not expected that, because everybody usually, it's like they vomit all their stuff, you know, it's like me, myself, and I. That's what I call it.
I've heard that before. As soon as you
start talking about you and your business, they glaze over and they're already moving on to the next person.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. It's just, okay, well, you've become boring.
Right.
I'm like the bumblebee that's done with this flower. I've got to go to another flower.
But when I ask them, you know, I just disrupt their pattern. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Okay.
I found a unique sort of thing in my business, and I hope this doesn't take us off track. I don't think it does, but on the back of my business card is a line that says, who was your most impactful boss, coach, or teacher? Or you could say, who is your own personal hero? Mm-hmm. And everybody can tell me, their eyes light up in a minute. They light up in a heartbeat, because everybody has that person.
Right.
Mine was Colonel John Ripley in the Marine Corps, but everybody has that person. And they're usually from 10 or 20 years ago. And if you say, tell me about that person, the next 10 minutes, you're going to be listening to what this person gave to them. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. And virtually every time, the answer is, they made me believe I could do something that I didn't think I could do. They made me believe I could recover from the problem. Yes. They drove me. Nobody has yet to say, well, he allowed me to slack off. I got to skate the whole time. Everybody else did all the work, and I got to have my feet up. Nobody responds that way.
No.
But it's a fascinating exercise. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of those people in our lives. With all the leaders that we have, we don't have enough that are at that level. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Right. So. I love that. And it's like, you know what, the thing is, everybody can make a difference in somebody else's life. Everybody. And sometimes, and so on my voicemail, you know, people call me on my phone. It's like, hey, sorry, I missed your call. I'm probably out spreading smiles. If
Well,
you see somebody that doesn't have a smile, give them one of yours. It might be the only nice thing they have had in a long, long time.
Well, it gets back to this whole thing that you don't know what somebody else is going through.
Right.
You have no idea what they're going through at the time.
Exactly.
And so just be nice.
What?
Be nice.
Be nice and kind and what?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully we can spread that.
I hope so. And I always tell people, it's like, you know, always come from a place of love and gratitude, no matter what. No matter who and what you encounter, come from a place of love and gratitude. Because it raises your vibration and it makes a big difference on how you react, actually.
Well, you have no idea what that little tiny random act of kindness, boy, you look nice today.
Right.
What it does to an individual. It could lift their entire day because they could have been ignored when they left the house. Maybe their spouse and they're fighting and they walked out and there was just this growl. It seems to be a frame of reference, but this growl as you walked out of the house. And now you can say, boy, that's a beautiful dress on you. That just could make someone's, an entire day.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. We should do this more often. It's like I say too, is like when you go to a restaurant, I mean, how often do we go eat out? Right. And how often do we actually acknowledge our server? You know, I always look like, you know, when, of course, they always usually come and they say, hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm your server. And I said, oh, that is awesome. It is so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for cooking for us tonight. And most of all, for doing the dishes. You know, I really appreciate it. And I introduce myself and I introduce whoever I'm with to our server. You know, and I tell them, it's like, I really, really very much appreciate you. And the reactions, try that sometime, people. Yeah. And look at, I mean, for acknowledging them for being a human being. And not
a lot of times they'll go through an entire shift and that won't happen. It's fun because you're exactly right. They go, you want to know my name? I said, well, it's easier to know your name than to say, hey, lady, can I have a bread?
Right. And sometimes I ask them too, it's like, so, I mean, if they're not super busy, you know, I mean, if they're super busy, I mean, I get that. But I was like, so when you're not here, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
You know, what lights you up? And they're like, what? Huh? So, but they're more than happy to share. I mean, it's amazing. And some of their stories, they just warm your heart. Yeah. It's like, wow, I want to be friends with you.
Yeah. It's particularly in the service industry, because I think there are people that do it full time. I know all of my kids have been servers, and I've been a server at one point in time. So you have a special place in your heart for them, right? And you know that they're busting their tail.
They do,
and they'll have enough customers that they don't get a tip from, or cranky ones. I mean, the stories are legend about the family that keeps coming in and eating the entire meal and then complaining about it so they can get a comp meal, and they don't tip on top of that. So these folks work hard, and they're just like us, just doing a job on a daily basis, trying to get by.
Exactly. And we all do that. And it's like, you know what? Kindness goes such a long way. It's like, you might have a crappy day, but the person you're talking to might have a crappier day. They may just not show it. I mean, seriously.
Very well. That was my experience at this meeting. Everybody, I thought, I was just in shock at the trauma that these people have all experienced based on the attitude they have. You'd never know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hey, Richard, thank you so much for being on the show. I love having you.
My pleasure. It was my great pleasure. Thank you. I enjoy it.
Thank you. So, and to you all, everybody out there, thank you so much for watching, for coming back. And if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do, because we have amazing people lined up still for this month, and I'm booking for next month. If you know somebody that has a great story to share that could inspire people, connect them with me. That'd be awesome. So thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. And as always, be happy, be kind, be love. Bye. Thank you.